Up another year, another time the New York Mets pry away a top reliever from the New York Yankees. A year ago it was Clay Holmes, now turned starter on a multi-year deal, 3 years to be exact. Fast forward a year later, Devin Williams inks a 3-year contract over $50 million to be the Mets setup man for 2026. Because yes, you heard it here, folks, from Anthony Nocomo there of MLB covering the Mets on the beat. He stated it himself right here, right now. The Mets are still interested in re-signing Edwin Diaz after agreeing to terms with Devin Williams per source. Williams is open to pitching in a set-up role. Let's go! Hype me up, guys. Listen, a lot of you guys that have watched my content since the start of the offseason gave me flack, said, Wardy, there's no chance the Mets sign Devin Williams. Why would they do such a thing? And I told you guys, one, Devin Williams was beloved by David Stern, so much so that during their time in Milwaukee together, he was comfortable trading away Josh Hader with over a year left of control on his contract to give Williams the closer role. Secondly, Williams came off of what was an up-down season in his first and only year in the Bronx, handling the big market for the first time, fluctuating out of that closer role, then had some dominant outings down the stretch and went from being a fan not so favorite to becoming a fan favorite throughout the course of the year. Williams got a taste of everything, and now he will continue his talents in New York. The same man who, mind you, is the reason why we had an amazing 2024 playoff run, because he tipped that one pitch beautifully to Alonso, the first home run he ever gave up there to a right-handed batter opposite field. It was the polar bear. Now let's have them be teammates. Devin Williams inks a massive 3-year, over $50 million contract. No opt-outs initially broken from our good friend on the platform that we just had on the live stream over the past week. And Will Salmon of The Athletic, he was the first on the scoop for this one, so congrats, Will, on getting that scoop. And how fitting is it that Will Salmon, the man who used to be on the beat for the Milwaukee Brewers during David Stearns' tenure, comes over now over the past couple years covering the New York Mets, that he gets to cover this news and be the first to break it. Devin Williams, former star closer and reliever for the Milwaukee Brewers. Devin Williams, what was it, Jekyll and Hyde season, but finished strong there in the Bronx for the Yankees. Now a New York Met to pair with Clay Holmes there, even though that they don't know each other all that well, from one Yankee reliever to another, even though another is a starter now. You look at what the Mets have and what they're building through their pitching department, especially with guys, and hopefully we're going to get the best out of them there. And Justin Willard, who came over as a director of pitching, who did a phenomenal job there for the Boston Red Sox each of the past 2 seasons, pairing him with everyone else, Eric Yeagers and all else and company. I'm very excited to see how Devin Williams is going to do in a Mets uniform, guys. Again, if the New York Mets are able to have Devin Williams be their setup man for Edwin Diaz, there is no doubt in my mind and the minds of many that that is easily one of the best, if not the best 1-2 punch in all of baseball when evaluating the 8th and 9th innings. So think about it. This is what the Mets so desperately try to do that we all saw over the past year, leading to the trade deadline. They want to get a dominant closer that could be the setup man to Edwin Diaz. They tried Ryan Helsley, but where they failed was Ryan Helsley tipped his pitches far worse than Devin Williams ever did in that wild card game against the Mets in 2024. He had basically not only tipping pitches, it almost felt like the yips for the first month and a half in a Mets uniform. And then when he finally got right, it was too little too late. He costed the Mets too many times, and the Mets simply were out of it when it came to postseason play. You knew that they were not going to find themselves crawling back in as we got to that final week plus. But the point is Ryan Helsley, a small market pitcher that was not able to handle the big market. I love the fact that the Mets were able to bring in Devin Williams after he's already had a taste of the highs and the lows from what can be a very toxic fan base in New York. And I'm not trying to slight all Yankee fans, but let's call it how it is. Massive fan base can be a toxic one if a player doesn't perform well. Yeah, Joey Gallo, scared to go outside, a guy who, again, idolized the Yankees growing up, yet was heckled constantly anywhere he went, death threats, you name it. So the point I'm trying to make is that Devin Williams got the taste of the good, the bad, the ugly, and the great all throughout his one and only year there in the Bronx for the New York Yankees. And now he's going to be able to take that big market experience with the New York Mets, have that familiar face there that we will see with David Stearns, and I'm sure that that connection held true and the Mets making this pursuit happen, everybody. But I will just make something abundantly clear. If the New York Mets do not bring back Edwin Diaz, I'm going to be pissed off, because Edwin Diaz is undoubtedly, in my opinion, I think most of you guys can agree, the best reliever in this market. And yes, there's always a cost when you invest highly in relievers, especially guys in, say, north of 5 years, over $100 million a second time around. But what's also true is that it would really only be like a 2-year extension on top of the couple years that he had left on his contract, 2 to 3 years at least. And I understand there's risk, and I understand Diaz probably won't have as dominant of a season next year as he did this year, because we saw him dominate in a walk year. That's the commonality with Edwin Diaz that we've seen, right? We've seen him go from his 2022 season with the Mets, where he was the best reliever in baseball. Bam, won the award out of the National League that year, won it again this year out of the National League. And what those years have in common? They were his walk years. So we know Diaz is looking for the pretty penny. He was at Citi Field a couple weeks ago when I was there, between Team Puerto Rico and Team Dominican Republic, and he was chilling in the Cohen suite, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully that was good standing for having early negotiations happen. But the Mets need to make sure that Edwin Diaz does not go to a team like the LA Dodgers, because this honestly reaches a moot point, God forbid, if the Mets bring in Williams on this multi-year contract, which I really like, and I think a lot of you guys do too. But the problem is that if you bring him in and you get too comfortable knowing you have Williams as now a closer option, that it goes against you in the sense that you don't go as aggressively after Diaz, and you see the Dodgers swoop in, give him stupid deferred money, and then bam, he's the closer in LA. You're going to be shooting yourself in the foot for years to come, because I do not believe Edwin Diaz would have a terrible transition in year one on a big contract in LA, the way that Tanner Scott was a schmuck and certainly did. When I look at Edwin Diaz, I look at one of the most consistently dominant relievers over the past couple years, a man who's defied the odds, who is simply someone who cannot handle New York his first year here in 2019, has come so far from that. So we don't really think about Diaz's struggles as we just think about, okay, how is Edwin going to get us out of this mess? Because we know he's going to do it. Even if he creates his own mess by walking a batter, hitting a batter, giving up a soft single, whatever the case may be, he thrives under pressure in this big market. And that's why it's so imperative to make sure that Edwin, a special talent like him, does not go to a top rival contender elsewhere, whether it's LA or whether it's somewhere else in the American or National League. But Mets fans, I want to hear from you guys first and foremost. How are we feeling right now on the news that Devin Williams again has inked a 3-year contract of over $50 million to now be the New York Mets hopefully set up man for this upcoming season? Thank you guys all so much for the donations. I greatly appreciate it. I'll get to you guys in a little bit as soon as I possibly can. I just want to continue to live react to this one. I want to hear from you guys, especially on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy or dissatisfied are you with this signing for the New York Mets? Also, folks, thank you again so much for 36,000 subscribers. I greatly appreciate it. And as a further thank you for that latest milestone, as I promise you'll be getting it a calendar week from now in our live stream and day 2 of MLB Winter Meetings Monday, December 8th. We'll be live at some point that day, whether it's due to breaking news like this per se, or because of just covering the winter meetings in the evening. And one of those live streams, we'll be doing a jersey giveaway to one lucky subscriber of whatever player you currently want on the Mets roster. And yes, that now does include Devin Williams if you have the appetite for a Devin Williams jersey. But it's actually insane thinking about this, guys. You were live there with me when we were covering the 2024 playoff run for this Mets team. You guys saw me live in real time act and scream like a little girl because of that Alonso home run opposite field off of Devin Williams. And it's crazy just seeing how, again, after 1 year in the Bronx, where it's such a similar story to Juan Soto. And this is also something that wouldn't shock me if it happens with Cody Bellinger. You know, it's not the Mets' fault that the Yankees bring in really good talents, yet are not able to secure them on longer-term deals after the fact. There is something very appealing about Steve Cohen and the New York Mets. And you say to yourself, Wardy, what exactly is it that's so appealing about this team? They haven't had all that much success. You only have a couple World Series to show. They only have, one truly successful season under Steve Cohen if we exclude 2022, because 2022 fell off a cliff towards the end, and then of course he got curb stomped by the Padres in playoffs. And sadly, myself and many of you guys as well were in attendance for game 1 of that matchup, where Max Scherzer was simply nowhere to be seen when it came to being competent. So the point is outside of 2024, the magical, miracle, amazing run for this team has not had success under Cohen in a large part. So what is so appealing about them? And we know obviously a heavy factor is the dollar amount, and we know David Stern certainly played a key factor in this acquisition as someone who had a really good rapport with him during their multi-year long commitment in Milwaukee. But what this comes down to, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people can agree on this, when you just look at everything that comes down to why he chose the New York Mets, this is a team that handles their players better than most in the game. This is why you have Kodai Senga to a degree wanting to return. This is why you had Jose Iglesias wanting to return. This is why you had Jesse Winker begging to return, and of course he got that contract. This is why everyone from the 2024 Mets wanted to run it back. This is why even before then, players in Mets have parted ways with them past, and Eduardo Escobar, Jonathan Villar, etc. The constant commonality that we have heard amongst these players that have had levels of success in Flushing, Queens under the Steve Cohen era is how well they have been treated, how great their families have been treated, and how much the ownership has really given back to them to make them feel like that they're not just a guy that's getting a paycheck. And that has run true and what's built to a great relationship connection from ownership down in this organization, very night and day from how the team used to be under Will Ponzian regime. So I'm not saying it was every key factor in this decision for Devin Williams, but it absolutely was to a certain degree, because again, you can't pitch the Mets on what they have been. You can't pitch them on necessarily certainty on what they will be. As exciting as their farm in it is and as deep as it is right now, there's still a lot of uncertainty there. So very good job by David Stearns. Fantastic job by Steve Cohen for comfortably shelling out the dough on the same day that the Mets get their casino all set in stone, that they can now begin the building process if they haven't already. They got the license for it. Everything is going to be set by June of 2030. Steve Cohen had to spend a fee of $500 million in order to make this casino come to fruition, but we know that he's going to make a lot of money on that one. I know that that's very controversial to some that are very anti-gambling, but I mean it more in the sense of Metropolitan Park as a whole. Very exciting times to see what the change is going to be like at Citi Field, and this was a nice little present that Steve Cohen gave back to the fans today after having the success of that license being announced there with the casino, among other things. So everybody, Devin Williams, let's get a poll going here in the live show. I want to hear from you guys live in real time. How are you feeling about this signing for the New York Mets? Like I said, going back to the beginning of the offseason, some of you guys call me crazy. You call me all these kind of things for saying, Wardy, how could you suggest such a thing for Devin Williams? And it's all because of the reasons I just relayed to you. So now when you ask yourself, okay, why is Devin Williams a New York Met? I hope you have found all the answers. So let's get on now to the poll here, everybody. Thank you so much for hitting that like and subscribe button. Let's get the hype going. Let's get the love going. Let's get ourselves to 400 plus likes for our next short-term goal. We have 1,500 concurrent people in here. All I'm asking is for 500 of you guys to hit that like and subscribe button. That'd really be helpful, everybody. Thank you so much for the support. And again, make sure to hit that sub button, especially if you guys enjoy consistent daily coverage on all things New York Mets in season, off season, and in between. Thank you so much for the support there. Let me get this poll up now. Give me 1 second, everybody. I'm just putting this poll up. All right, there we go. Sweet. Let's get to some of these donations, everybody, and then we'll continue on and we'll break down more of what you guys need to know about Devin Williams, because a lot of this has been the initial reaction to the news happening, but some of you guys are not as versed as to who Devin Williams is and his game, so we're going to give you a complete deep dive yet again on everything that you need to know on that front. But before we do so, of course, thank you guys for hitting those buttons. Thank you guys for the donations as well. I greatly appreciate that. The reason why I'm not going to eat bananas over this is because, A, I really did expect this. I thought Devin Williams was almost a shoo-in of a acquisition for the New York Mets this year, as long as he still had an appetite to play in a big market like New York. There were just too many signs between the connection with David Stearns and the Mets' adamancy to land a star reliever, former closer that could be a setup man for Edwin Diaz, because that's, again, what the Mets desperately tried to do at the trade deadline. So what would make you think that they wouldn't try to do that again? You know, the only thing that this does that could change the direction to a degree of Edwin Diaz is if this does go in hand with the Mets not having as heavy of a pursuit, or maybe they had more of an appetite before signing Williams to go 5 years again, where maybe they only have an appetite to stay firm at 3 now. Again, I know that that isn't maybe not something that you guys want to hear, but I'm just throwing out all these possibilities. Is as much as we want Edwin Diaz to return, and it does appear that there's a great possibility that that'll still happen, until it is pen and paper, we still have to go with the belief that anything is on the table this offseason. And as we, again, take a look here, in case you guys have not seen it, and let me get to these donations as well, guys. Going back to the top of this on the Anthony DeComo news, news. Fantastic piece here to drop by Tacoma. Mets are still interested in re-signing Edwin Diaz even after agreeing in terms with Devin Williams. First source, Williams is open to pitching in a set-up role. That is the big news that we have to this point, everybody. Now let's get into a bit more on Devin, what I want you guys to know about his game. And while I do that, I'll also be answering your comments and these donations first. So let's go ahead, everybody. Now enjoy some Devin Williams highlights, even though they're a little erratic just because I got a lot of things running on the computer at the moment. I apologize for that. But as we get into this one, we got my guy Gain with a $5 holla. This contract is interesting. I hope we still get Diaz. What a back end that'll be. Absolutely. You just got to make sure you have the 1-2 punch. That's the most important thing. Otherwise, I feel like we're moving absolute best lateral, and I think that is still not holding true because I look at this acquisition in in Devin Williams, and it really does remind me on how, as good as he is, I would still like the Mets to do more there. There's no doubt about that. Now, as we continue on, folks, let me get this all set up. Just give me 1 second. We'll go on from there. Wow, 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 wow is all I got to say at the moment. Oh, my goodness gracious. Okay. All right, folks, let's get into this. Next one, we have Jeremy with the $5 holla. Thank you, Jeremy. And again, guys, breaking news. Edwin Diaz hopefully will be next, the closer for the New York Mets. But in the meantime, it's Devin Williams on a 3-year, $50+ million contract. No opt-outs, as hopefully the New York Mets man. Diaz still in play. Williams, a 1.89 ERA from 2021 to 2024. Why are people complaining? Listen, the New York Mets could quite literally sign Jesus Christ himself to a lifelong contract, and you would still have people complaining. The same way that if the Mets got Shohei Ohtani for a bag of baseballs right now, people would still be complaining. It quite literally does not matter who the Mets acquire, as long as the Mets have the Mets fan base, and I love them to death, but they know who they are. They are internally toxic because they don't really know any other thing to be, because they've been so consumed by failure and being miserable and really not ever meeting expectations as a fan. Think about it. There's a large contingent of Mets fans, much older than me, that still never witnessed a championship, that were born just after 86, or, we're too young to appreciate it in 86. So, again, I may not agree with everyone's reasoning as to act as out of pocket as they do at times, but what I will say is that to a degree, it can be justified when you've been through a lot of pain and turmoil as a diehard fan for decades upon decades on end. Nicholas, thank you for the $2 holla. Says, if we get Brewers, Williams, and lock up Diaz, oh yeah, we're cooking. Ramos, my man, another great member with a $10 holla. Thank you, brother. What's up, brother? Let's keep it going. Absolutely. Again, some breaking news today, folks. And what has this breaking news had in common with the other breaking news we've seen from David Stern so far this offseason? Has not been leaked out all that much. I've only heard from a very few people in the grapevine of the news of, for example, the Marcus Semien, Brandon Nimmo news happening before it was official. Only a couple of people I heard after the fact of me finding out when it officially broke by everyone else. I didn't get any inside info on that one. But after the fact, I did hear some people knew a couple of days in advance, but very few. A lot of the information that had been relayed from credible people so far this offseason, they didn't necessarily have this or were able to share this right away. So David Stearns, again, has continued to do a very good job on staying fairly hush-hush and some breaking news so far this offseason, trying to build what will hopefully be a top contender out of the National League heading into 2026. We got ourselves my guy Levin with the $5 holla. Thank you, my man. Uncle Stevie won his casino license bid today, is now celebrating by signing Devin Williams. There you go. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Nicholas with the $10 holla says, Diaz will be back. Winter meetings didn't even start, people. Have to calm down. You can tell who doesn't know baseball. I love this signing. We're building and shaking up the status quo. It's always LFGM. LFGM, Nicholas. Love it. Thank you so much for the donation. Appreciate your input. We got our guy. Let's go up here. Alberto, thank you so much for the $5 holla. Appreciate that. Mike Nixon, great member of 19 months, says, let's effing go, Wardy. We got Williams. Hopefully next Diaz come back as well. Yeah, again, if we get Edwin locked down, we're looking fantastic. Right now, guys, if the Mets get Edwin Diaz, our top four in our bullpen will be Diaz, Williams, Minter, really, dogs. And listen, I still want to add more there, but let's not forget the potential high upside and top prospects on the reliever front, and Dylan Ross, who was called up in the final day or so this season. Didn't get a chance to make his debut, but was with the team at the time where they lost in Miami. You also look at, of course, Ryan Lambert, who helped close it out for the Rumble Ponies to secure the AA championship this year. Two flamethrowers of different statures. Ross is a much bigger guy, height-wise, if I'm not mistaken, but two guys that throw gas that could really impact this Mets bullpen as soon as next season. Yeah, I am amped right now, everybody. You just got to bring Diaz back, and this team is in great position to be building one of the better bullpens, and hopefully a far more consistent one than what we got last year. You know, just have to stay healthy. That goes without saying, too. Matthew Martell with a $2 holla. Wait, so $10 million a year, 6 as bonus, and $15 million deferred? I'll double check for you in a second, Matthew. Bazan, thank you so much for the $2 holla. I appreciate that. Still have a good shot at Diaz because of the QO. Absolutely. And that QO is going to continue to ring true and help the New York Mets on the front of making sure that hopefully Edwin Diaz doesn't go anywhere. I told you guys this before, and I'll say it again, but the Mets have positioned themselves well to now have that 1-2 punch that we have been longing for in this Mets bullpen. You know, and I'm trying to think of the last time, you know, over the past number of years where I love the Mets setup to, you know, closer role. And it really has fluctuated, to say the least. You know, I think that first year of Adam Ottavino with the New York Mets in 2022, I think that's probably the closest in recent memory I can think of a guy who I felt fairly comfortable with in a lot of situations, but especially set up for Edwin Diaz. Otto had a very good first year with us, and then it just slowly but then surely regressed after the fact. I'm curious what you guys have to say about that. What was the last, like in your opinion, very good 1-2 punch from the 8th to the 9th inning for this Mets bullpen? And let's see here. Oh, thank you so much for the gifted, my friend. I really, really appreciate that. Let's get some hype in the chat. We got people gifting memberships. Fred Perez gifting a membership to our guy in the chat. Peter, congratulations on becoming a member. If you guys would like to become a member, that way you can further support the platform as well as get exclusive live streams monthly with yours truly that we're long overdue on. So we definitely have to do one of those soon. Please check out our membership options. Link down below in the description. And of course, shout out to our amazing sponsor today at SeatGeek that has you covered for all of your ticketing needs. What was his ERA last season? Just look straight at the screen. 4.79 ERA, my friend, but a 3.07 expected ERA is what we want to have heavy emphasis on. Why, you might ask? Is because baseline ERA does not fully account for other factors that are outside of a pitcher's control, but can be in the defense's control that don't actually get called for errors. So, for example, Devin Williams having almost a full 2 runs lower on his expected ERA tells you that he had some terrible luck last season. It's not shocking that he had terrible luck when you had the incompetent Anthony Volpe there at shortstop for him. You know, that Yankees infield had a lot to be desired when it came to being competent on the defensive end. So you not only factor that in, you factor, of course, some bad luck to begin the season. You look at the metrics as well with the kind of home runs he was giving up early, you know, how much his rates changed from the first half of the season to the second half. But all in all, when you look at Williams' numbers, they are very telling. He is going to be quite the talent for the New York Mets, and we just have to hope that's going to be more in the position of a setup role than it will be as a actual closer role. Clippard, Reed, and Familia. Reed and Familia were amazing, no doubt about that, no doubt at all. Let's see, 50 million for Devin Williams. Here's the thing, I don't know why people laugh. I find it funny when people laugh in that sense. Like, one, it's not your money, and two, it's not going to stop the Mets from making decisions. So, you know, like, the Mets unfortunately just ate a terrible contract to Frankie Montas already, basically, but it's not going to hinder the moves that they make at all, you know? Again, I understand these things can be hard for the ill-informed to understand, but it's okay. I'm here to help. So, as we continue on, let's talk a bit more about this signing and what it means for the New York Mets. Because what are the Mets getting, again, in someone as good as this? Well, they're getting, in my opinion, and the opinions of many, one of the most consistent relievers that we have seen in the National League really up until this past season, his first year there in the Bronx with the Yankees. And one thing that I think is so important to evaluate with someone like Devin Williams is really what his track record has been. And outside of what was a fluke first couple months in the Bronx, he settled down. Let's take a look at his numbers, shall we? Let's break it down in Fangraphs, everybody. Devin Williams is, of course, entering his age 32 season, so the Mets will have him locked up until his mid-30s or so, at minimum, with no opt-outs over 3 years of $50+ million. He, of course, has that nasty changeup, which gets his swing and miss and has so much success, of course, other than throwing it to Pete Alonso a little outside, and the rest is history there. The fastball, though, we know can be very lively, and this season for the New York Yankees, he had himself a 13 strikeouts per 9 to a 3.6 walks per 9. So give the flack that you want to Devin Williams for his, you know, inflated baseline ERA, but he was able to actually get the lowest walk rate that he has had in his career since the small sample size 2020 season. So he actually made proper adjustments. So while he gave up a little bit in the K rate versus what we saw in 2024, the difference is that he had the most successful season that he has had yet at his walks per 9. And that's great to see. That means that he's still getting better with age. When we see beyond that, and Devin Williams, and my screen just scrolled on me. That was weird. Let's see here. The 4.79 ERA, yes, but we're looking at a 0.73 home run per nine. That is where he had a bit of a big bugaboo that we saw. That was the largest home run rate that he had since the 2021 season in 54 innings, where he still posted a 2.5 ERA that season. But the point stands, high home run rate that went in hand with pitching in batter's box half the season there in the Bronx, as well as, getting acclimated, getting adjusted, not looking his best that we saw, especially in the first half of that season. Now, when we look at his career ERAs and expected ERAs, this is where I really want you guys to continue to pay attention, because as you guys can see here on the graphic to the far right, first year, 3.95 ERA with a 4.19 ERA and the inflated juice ball era in 2019 and only 13 innings. In 2020, we saw him in 27 innings have an absurd almost 18 strikeouts per nine to a 3 walks per nine in 27 innings, a 0.3 ERA and a 1.42 expected ERA. So had some lady luck on his side, but was just still unbelievable. 2021, 54 innings for him. 2.5 ERA, 2.79 expected ERA. 2022, Devin Williams, 60.2 innings pitched, and he has a 1.93 ERA and a 2.04 ERA. 2023, 58 innings pitched, a 1.5 ERA and a 2.6 expected ERA. Then we see 2024, 21 innings due to injury. We saw a 1.25 ERA and a 2.09 expected ERA. Now 2025, 62 innings, the most innings he's ever pitched in his career at this point, 4.79 ERA, but a 3.11 expected ERA. And I actually apologize, everybody, because now that I see on the graphic, I have my graphic slightly off with the expected ERA. I don't know what changed. Last time I saw it, it was at 3.07. Now it's telling me 3.11. And not that that really makes a difference, because it most certainly doesn't. But I apologize for that being slightly off. Yeah, maybe that's bizarre. What did I look at that was wrong? Because I had the same amount of games and innings. I'm just a dummy, per usual. That's okay, though. But again, guys, let's see how you guys are reacting in the live poll right now to the Devin Williams news. If you guys haven't already, continue to smash a like and subscribe on. Help us get a 500+ likes for our next short-term goal here in the live show. And again, as a thank you for 36,000 subscribers, we are giving away a jersey to one lucky subscriber here on the platform just for being, amazing and helping us get to 36K. And let's see. And I love the people. Oh my God, I'm getting a lot of people, my Yankee fan friends, are saying, shout out Jake Asman, my dog. He says, you will not enjoy Devin Williams, trust me. Jake, trust me when I say that there's a lot more that's going to come with Devin Williams. We understand that he's going to have his flaws. We know he's not going to be perfect, but the Mets are going to get him right, especially if he's our setup man. If he's our closer, then it's a different discussion. Then I think the jury's still out as to how good he'll perform, because then I really don't know how he will consistently handle that pressure. But to be determined on that front. Big time, especially if Diaz is back. I love this. Me too, Billy. Thank you so much for that donation. I really appreciate that. Let's see. Check Salmon, unless I read that wrong. We just got Devin for $10 million a year. What a steal. Let me go ahead and double check. Now, again, this was from Passan that we initially saw. Let's go over here. Okay. Devin Williams' deal with the New York Mets is 3 years with no opt-outs or options per source. He'll be there and pitching at the back end and maybe in the ninth inning, depending on where Edwin Diaz goes for the foreseeable future. So that's what we have there. And again, initially said from Jeff Passan, it's guarantees more than $50 million. So I don't see how this is 10 mil AAV. If this is 10 mil AAV, then that means that there are deferments more than likely. Yes, that's where that would add up. Okay, so here we go. It remains possible that the Mets can still add Edwin Diaz, as well Salmon League sources said. Williams' deal is $45 million plus a $6 million bonus, prorated equal over the 3 years, in total $15 million in deferred, $5 million each year. Okay, so there we go. That's the official details of the contract. Not that it really matters at all, but there is what we have. $45 million plus, so we're looking at a $51 million contract, including the $6 million bonus, and then $15 million deferred, $5 million each year. So not bad. So the Mets did a good job on deferring, not a crazy amount of money, but just enough that's going to make things a little bit easier for them, depending on what threshold they have when looking at the tax bracket that they'll be in. Because of course, beyond $300 million, you're spending, 90+% tax on any cent that you spend, and that goes right in the pockets of the rival schmuck owners that decide not to spend. We're going to continue to answer your comments and questions in real time, everybody, but to break down more as to why the Mets made this signing, again, everybody, the fact that you are going to allow, 2.5 months of not great pitching from Devin Williams get in the way of what he's been doing for consistently his past 5 12.5 years in his career, I think is kind of bizarre, especially when you consider the fact of how well David Stearns already knows him and has the ability to maximize him. It just feels silly to me, but I understand we're naturally going to have people that are going to smite everything, and I'm not saying that his ERA is pretty, but what I am saying is that all the numbers that actually matter far more than his baseline ERA tells you that he is going to be a very good pitcher for the New York Mets. Again, 94th percentile in off-speed run value, 58th in fastball run value, 78th in pitching run value. Doesn't have the breaking run value, obviously, but expected ERA this past season, 86 for context. Again, this is out of 100, mind you, 100 being the best in baseball, so 86 is pretty good in that top 15 bracket or so. Why is that important, you might ask? Because he's in the top 15 of expected ERA among all eligible pitchers in Major League Baseball. And then we go on to see 95th percentile in expected batting average. No one was hitting him well, especially once he got into groove. 195 for opponent batting average. Fastball velocity is smidge below league average at 46, sitting 94 plus. Average exit velocity 44 there, so not terribly hard hit that we see, at least when looking at the velocity. Then we get into the chase percentage, 97th percentile, amazing. Whip percentage, 99th percentile, even more amazing. K percentage, 97th percentile. Again, Devin Williams is one of the best strikeout throwers in baseball when evaluating relievers. It's as simple as this: 20th percentile walk rate, 32nd in barrel percentage. But mind you, that 20th percentile walk rate is actually the best he's really had in his career, for those that are unaware. 85 percentile and the hard hit percentage. And I see people yapping about how many years no rings. I would say the same if I'm a spiteful Yankee fan that is upset that yet again the New York Mets were able to pry a player away that the Yankees had interest in returning. I know it's hard for you guys to comprehend. It's another year where you're still saying to yourself, how is Juan Soto not Aaron Judge's teammate? But I assure you that at some point, even if it does take a decade, you too will get through this. Now, as we continue on, we have the 85th percentile in the hard hit percentage, as I mentioned, 66 in ground ball percentage, which is a nice little bit above league average. 99th in extension. That is what makes Devin Williams so dominant, because he's not a big guy. He's only 6'2", just under 200 pounds there for the 31-year-old, but he gets supreme extension with his release point, which is what leads to the amount of success that he has. And we saw his velocity again sit right around 94, topping high 90s on the gun this year, that he threw right around 47% of the time in the arsenal. We also see that the changeup at 52% of the arsenal was sitting right around 94 miles per hour, if not higher. And when we look at what he did in the 2024 season, everybody, again, more dominance. 2023, more dominance, just stupid. 2022, more dominance, a lot to love over the past 4-5 years of Devin Williams. But now, again, what he has done does not guarantee anything in the future. That's why we have to hope that the track record speaks for itself, that the underlying expected numbers of ones that do matter most when we evaluate pitching will prevail here, and that the Mets make sure that they do not allow themselves to completely overwork a guy like Devin. Again, this was just the second season in his career that he went 60-plus innings. So the Mets got to make sure that they don't just go ahead and try to throw him in as a rubber arm, making him go north of 80 innings next season. Because, again, we know that that can lead to some bad things, especially when he is a very important investment now for this bullpen. So now, guys, continue to let me know your thoughts. Let's get to the poll here, because I did mean to talk about that briefly. 200 likes away from 500. Continue to smash that like and subscribe on as you guys chime in, as we're live reacting in real time to Devin Williams signing with the New York Mets on a 3-year, $50+ million contract. $15 million deferred, however, for the New York Mets, 5 per year. Now, as we get to this, everybody, let's take a look at what the poll is telling us at the moment. And what the poll is currently stating is that out of roughly 1,000 votes, 26% of you guys love it, 10% of you guys hate it, and a whopping 64% of you only love it if Diaz is back. I find myself in that same category as well. I like the signing, even if Edwin Diaz doesn't return, but I love the signing if Edwin Diaz returns. And I don't think that's a wrong reaction to have whatsoever, everybody. Let's go ahead and put this up on X right now. We're going to continue to break this down for everyone watching live. For our replay viewers, we'll cut things off fairly soon, but not yet. But we have a lot more to get into on this one. Let's see. Oh, baby. All right, guys. I'm also here to tell you in confidence that the New York Mets may, in fact, be picking up ground on the Edwin Diaz front. And the obvious reason for that is the reliever market's now starting to pick up. The fact that they just landed Devin Williams means that they can now go really prioritize when looking at the next reliever option in Edwin Diaz. I also say this because I'd be lying if I didn't know people in the industry that are very well connected, that are in on the know, that are relaying the message that yes, Edwin Diaz absolutely looks like that he could be getting done sooner rather than later. It's definitely looking like that. It's hopefully at least beyond the halfway point right now versus where things previously were since the start of the offseason for the Mets. So that's very exciting news. God willing, they can get this done. Again, Edwin Diaz, Devin Williams, one of, if not the best 1-2 punch in Major League Baseball. I mean, I can't get over it. I can't get over the idea of the Mets having this duo when this was the same duo that was going bat for bat against each other just a year and a half ago in playoffs in the wild card. Like, it actually is insane, but this is what's exciting. And this is what tells you that, okay, if the Mets can get this done, if they can get Edwin Diaz covered and handled and finished with, then what do? Okay? Do you land Cody Bellinger? Do you say, give me another former Yankee that's going to be in a one-and-done year? Because the Yanks love to trade for players that they can't re-sign. Or are they going to go really all in on a Kyle Tucker? Are they going to go to a lesser degree in the outfield, right? How much of an appetite do they have someone for like a Byron Buxton if he wishes to be traded? And when you have a guy like Cody Clemens expected to be the first base option for the Twins next season, can you fault the guy for maybe wanting to suggest it's time to be dealt and waiving that no-trade clause? Whatever the case may be for the options, even including Jarren Duran, for example, who I know the Red Sox have an appetite to trade. Whatever the case may be for the New York Mets, they just need to make sure that they continue to be aggressive. As we lead into winter meetings, I told you guys that moves are more than likely inevitable to happen. You know, I'm not surprised that we had a domino like this fall. I think the only reaction that I have is that I honestly thought that the next move for the Mets could actually be a Kodai Senga trade. Instead, it's a Devin Williams signing. Not complaining about it all, but definitely interesting to see how this is going to go. And I'm really excited because, again, if the Mets can shore up these holes the way that we hope, and they can add to that rotation the way that we're praying for, like a Tatsuya Imai is, in my opinion, not a pipe dream, but getting up there in the free agent market. I really want him, which would make a Kodai Senga trade more likely because he doesn't even want to play with fellow countrymen, per Imai's message to the media over the past 2 weeks. But if you could sign and trade for someone, that's great. And you want to know the best part of this, everybody? The best part of it all is that everything that's being relayed in the media right now, and I hope it holds true, God willing, because everything can change when it's coming through the media, especially. You can take it with a grain of salt at times. But the word is currently that, yes, the Mets absolutely have an appetite, and a lot of people believe that the Mets are going to sign one of the top pitchers in the market and trade for one. And it makes so much sense given the assets the Mets have, and the Mets knowing that if they want any chance at all to try to slay that dragon, which is the LA Dodgers next year, in order to do so, as well as to just get through your division, you have to make sure that you have a rotation filled with multiple aces. We can't live in the current day and age in MLB from this past season and moving forward where you only have one true ace in your rotation, because if that ace goes down and you do not get everyone else to back each other up and pick each other up, you're going to quickly free fall the way that the Mets did from mid-June on this past season. The Dodgers were a team that was able to bite the bullet on allowing Tyler Glasnow to only have 100 innings yet again this year. Blake Snell being non-existent in the first half. You know, you look at all these aspects of their rotation, even Yamamoto's injuries to a degree. What do they have in common? It didn't matter because they had such supreme depth in their rotation that by time that they got down the stretch, once they got to October, all their four horsemen of aces, and Yamamoto to Ohtani to Glasnow to Snell, were all healthy, ready to go, and they were the X factors. The Dodgers' X factor this year in their playoff run was not their offense. It had everything to do with their rotation and, of course, the bullpen that was able to step up. Pitching is always going to help lead the way in winning championships. Offense, of course, is imperative. It's important. It's pivotal. We are all well aware of this. You need a balance of it all. But having said that, the Mets need to make a change. And as much as we are excited and do believe that guys like Jonathan, Brandon Sproat, and of course Nolan McLean and Christian Scott to a degree can all be impactful for this Mets team next year, there's still too much uncertainty to allow yourself to buy into that as a certainty heading into next year's for its rotation. You have to allow these kids to not only continue to prove themselves, but you need to have them kind of battle it out because you brought in veterans that can also surefire give you a guaranteed thing in this rotation right now. If you don't have that, the Mets, in my opinion, are moving lateral, and we're not going to find ourselves in any greater position than where we likely were there in 2024, getting all the way to Game 6 of the NLCS. I love that. Oh, Devin Williams, really? It could be great or it could be terrible. I love that. It could be great or it could be terrible. No in between. I don't completely disagree with that. Let's see. Will Salmon says, resurfacing the story on Devin Williams that he broke back in November. It was interesting to hear his perspective on some of the numbers with the Yankees this past season. As far as my stuff, I felt it was good as, if not better than, it has been in years past. Several teams agreed he has had a point. Again, guys, so that's why you can't just buy into baseline ERA. And I'm not just saying this because the Mets just signed Devin Williams. I would have always been saying this to whoever signed Devin Williams. The same way that I really love the signing of Ryan Helsley to the Orioles. Why? Helsley goes back to a smaller market. He's going to dominate in that market. He's not going to have the yips. He's not going to be tipping pitches as much. Why? Because he's not going to be in the big market the way that he completely fumbled that in a midseason trade that he never experienced before in his life, especially going from a small market to a bigger market team like New York, mind you. So Ryan Helsley, when he puts up an all-star season for the Orioles next year, you come back to this and you say, okay, I understand what you're saying. The point is that just because one player has a couple months of struggles in one organization, that should not define them over what they did not only in the second half of that year, but as well as what they have done for the past 4 to 5 seasons. Again, I understand this may be hard for some of you guys to grasp. And I do understand that there are plenty of you guys that are in here just to troll, and that's okay. I appreciate the viewership. More money for me, not complaining about that one. But it comes down to the facts. Devin Williams, by all accounts, was going to be one of the best reliever pickups that any team could make this offseason, and the Mets just casually did that on 3 years of $51 million, $15 million deferred, $5 million a year there on that front, and they're not done. They're still trying to bring in Edwin Diaz. So that is what I got to say about that. Now, as we continue on, help us again get to 500 likes, guys, if you haven't already. I really do appreciate that. I want to continue to answer your comments, questions, and concerns regarding your live reactions to the Devin Williams news and now what this means for the New York Mets moving forward. And obviously, like I said, it goes without saying, what this means is that the Mets are going to do everything in their power to bring back Edwin Diaz. So now let's go in here and let's break it down. Let's get into this. I'm very, very excited. I really think that the Mets are putting them in. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. My source just told me I can relay this, so we're relaying it. He said one more thing you can leak. Okay. It's from the horse's mouth. Now, he said, I mean, this is pretty obvious, but he now can confirm this, that the Mets are not only in the Framber Valdez market, but the Mets have been in active communication with Valdez and his agents and have already spoken contract numbers. So I don't know how far that means. I don't know if Hector Gomez is going to be a cane for being the first to have broken this news from a couple days ago. But what I am here to tell you is that people that I know of great credibility in the industry just relayed the message that, yes, the Mets are not only in Valdez's market now, but they've exchanged levels of numbers. So what would that mean if the Mets went ahead and signed someone like Framber Valdez? What that would mean is that if they land their ace starter in the free agent market, you can still go absolutely bananas as to what you can do there in the trade market. No, it's not voices inside my head. It's as simple as this, my friends. And you guys don't have to believe me. If you guys want to take it with a grain of salt, that's fine. But I say this in confidence because these are people that have relayed a lot of information to me over the years that have been on the money with a lot of it. It doesn't mean everything's going to come to fruition because that is obviously not true. The Mets have been in talks with a boatload of players, some that I haven't even talked about in content with you guys because it hasn't come public yet, but there really is no point because, again, it could be preliminary discussions, whereas when you're in active talks, you're getting to the point of actually, relaying numbers back and forth, then there's a level of seriousness. But going back to my point is that if the Mets do find themselves actually, landing a Framber Valdez as a rotation piece, then what do you do beyond that? You still try to go ahead and land a quality starter in the trade market. So again, a lot of options on the table right now. If the Mets bring back Edwin Diaz, if they land 2 quality starters and land a top bat and bring Alonso back, like if they do everything that we're praying for, I will lose my mind. But once more, why am I not able to go ahead and tell you guys the source? Well, it's common sense. It's the same reason why John Heyman, Jeff Passan, what do? They never tell you where they are relay this information from because they are going to burn bridges then. That's not how this works. And I'm not a newsbreaker either. I only relay that because I was allowed to relay that, and that was basically that. I'm not one that goes out of my way to put on next. So breaking news, the Mets are at this point with this guy, or something along these lines. Shout out to Robbie Hyde for doing his Monster Territory Red Sox live stream right now. I pray that he doesn't have to do a live stream on Alonso signing with the Red Sox anytime soon, that's for sure. But the point stands. You don't give those things up because that defeats the purpose. Again, I've known about a lot of news I would say the most significant news I've ever been relayed before it happened was most recently the Mason Miller trade to the San Diego Padres. I knew the night before it was happening. I also knew the Jacob deGrom signing with the Texas Rangers almost 2 hours before Jeff Passan broke it. I knew that Carlos Correa was flying back to Minneapolis, Minnesota to ink back with them the night before it became public and broke news the next morning, I believe, or early afternoon. And that's just to name a few. I knew about the Jeff McNeil extension well before it became public, among other things. But again, not going to go out of my way to say that, I'm BSing you guys. I'm not BSing you guys. There's literally no reason for me to. If I want to BS, I could BS about so much more things than what I do for someone who covers the Mets daily for a living. I could be downright horrendous to you guys and just making up nonsense daily. There are other people that do that enough on X, and I don't want to be one of them. Pull the trigger and sign the guys. I know, after getting the casino. That's what we're hoping for. Yeah, and we're still at 64% now out of 1,200 votes here in the live chat saying only love this move for Devin Williams at 3 years, $50+ million if Edwin Diaz returns. And I don't blame you guys because I find myself in that category. But now, all right, guys, let's get into this and let's break down more. Let's see. Mikey, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun to know the news, but at the same time, it's kind of a blessing and a curse at times. Is when you find out news that you're not happy about, like specifically the Correa news, the deGrom news, that really the Yamamoto news as well. Like that really upset me. And not being able to talk about it immediately yet, at least in the public eye, really bothered me. A couple hours is one thing, but when you have to wait a whole night, I kind of had sleepless nights those nights because I really was not happy. It was frustrating to a degree, to say the least. But nonetheless, let's get to some of these donations, everybody, and then we'll continue on here in the show. But actually, everybody, before I continue on, I'm going to cut things off now to everyone watching live at a replay because I don't want to be, just to my live viewers, I should say. We'll continue for our replay viewers because I don't want this to be too long-winded of a live show for our replay viewers. And don't worry, everybody, we will have another video that will be dropping for each and every one of you as soon as early tomorrow regarding more of what is next for this New York Mets team. Very exciting news, to say the least, on this one, everybody. But as we continue now, we're going to continue to answer the live comments, questions, and concerns in the live show. The breaking news that the Mets have hopefully inked their setup man and Edwin Diaz there on, yes, we are looking at not Edwin Diaz, my goodness, Devin Williams. I have Edwin on my mind. I need sugar back in Queens. I apologize. Devin Williams, 3 years, $50+ million, $15 million deferred. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you guys again for 36,000 subscribers. Now to everyone, let's continue on with the live show. People on replay, let me know all your reactions, thoughts, and analysis down below. This is your guy, Wardy, signing out. Peace out, folks.